Hello and welcome to our podcast, talking about all things data engineering and data warehousing. One thing I wanted to ask you, something that really bugs me at the moment, things like the team sizes I'm seeing out there in various projects.
It varies a lot.
Varies a lot, exactly. So going to one client, maybe their entire BI team is 2 people, 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the next one, 50 or 60 people. Okay, and then they start a project, so they say, oh, now we need to re-platform. So they go out and find a supplier to work with them. And depending on the supplier, you might get 30 people turn up on day one to start working on the warehouse. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, looking at that variation in there as to who's right. I mean, do you really only need 2 people to run a warehouse? Do you need 40 people to run a warehouse?
Well, it depends, doesn't it, on the size of the project.
It's one of those big it depends type questions, I agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, surely we need to expect much less variation in there.
Yeah.
And what does get me really worried is when I see huge amounts of money being spent on projects with very large teams at work, and they're all manually coding. And you can actually visibly see the project sort of deteriorate and drift in front of your eyes.
And slow down.
Slows down. Well, all big projects slow down because of the communication overload in there.
Yeah.
But when you think about the alternatives that are out there, and you often hear things like, well, we're saving lots of money on tools. But that's not true, is it? Surely, if a tool makes you as productive as 3 people, you only need 10 people instead of 30 on a project.
Yes.
Yeah. Which means it speeds up, surely, because the communication overheads have dropped.
Well, yes, potentially.
Yeah. And there's no need to go out and find all the skills you need to cover across 30 people and stuff.
I'm sure you've probably seen the phrase cost of ownership as well, which kind of comes into it, where if you're buying a tool and you have to train people up on it, there's time taken to train them as well. So there's that kind of angle.
Yeah, TCO. Yes, that's true. Yes, there's an element to that as well. But I think the other thing is, how small can you go? Because there's a sort of minimum skill set you need to run a business intelligence project. So you need data engineering, you need testing, you need business analysis skills, solution architecture, platform engineering if you're getting into all the network and cloud stuff, dashboard development, AI, a bit of Python or whatever programming if you're getting into the low level details. Yeah, and I'm sure I've missed one from that list. Data modeling as well tends to come in as well. Yeah, and then specific tool skills that you need in that space. So it's good 8 or 10 skills that you need inside the team.
And some of those are within a very small concentration of people. Sometimes those skills might be spread out. Again, it depends on team size, right?
Well, I think the one thing we can agree is if you can find someone with all 10 skills, you found a unicorn.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay. So as you knock a skill off, those with 9 there's a bit more. Those with 8 there's a bit more. And so on. So you've got to make sure those skills are covered off across the whole team.
Yeah.
But also that person's got enough time to do all the work that needs to be done across those skills. So what you find is probably as you whittle it down, sort of the minimum skills, the team size should be around about 5 people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be diluting too much where you have all the skills spread over too many people, but you don't want all of the skills concentrated in one person because then they're going to be overloaded. So
not just that, but what happens when they leave?
Exactly.
They take all the skills with them.
Yeah.
So I find this really quite a fascinating problem in some ways, in that there's an optimum team size at which they're at their most productive, that they're not slowed down because of all the communication overheads. They're making really good use of tooling, so a person's knocking out work at a high rate of high quality, repetitive quality, and it means that you're getting the best of your investment in this space. So I'm thinking here of a couple of examples I've seen where someone started a project off, looked at even just landing in the warehouse. And you think about landing, most of the time you can just set up Fivetran, so you provide it with a list of tables and it does it for you.
Yeah, and I mean there's other tools.
There are other tools out here, by the way, but yes, let's say that. they insist on writing by hand all the landing software. So you're going to have a team of 12 people working for like months and months, landing all these tables.
It's a solved problem.
It's a solved problem. You can
Yeah.
you can get that data landing in a few days' work.
Yeah.
So why are you spending all that time on doing the landing? Exactly. I mean, the possible arguments. There are areas where some of these tools don't really work, but that's very, very far and few between.
Yeah.
It's a highly secure environment.
I was about to say there might be some restrictions depending on the organisation for sure. Yeah.
But a lot of those can be relaxed. It's a matter of policy at the after all, isn't it? And then you start saying, okay, fine. Loading data, getting data up into a silver layer. Again, that's fairly a well-known problem. Should be able to get that automated as well to a large extent. So again, with automation, a couple of people, 2 or 3 people working, you should be able to get through a fair volume of stuff every day, every week. Why do you need more? Why do you need a team of 14 or so working on that? So I think it comes around to possibly either the supplier doesn't know that you can do that, or that's their standard way of working. They've always done it by hand, so that's the way it's always going to be. Or the purchasing organisation hasn't really got to the bottom of how productive the tooling can be nowadays to get you moving really fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also quite a prevalent fallacy of you throw more people at something, it will get done faster, which definitely isn't the case.
Well, there's definitely a curve in there.
Yeah.
I think it improves up to a certain point.
There is a fall
but
off.
Very, very quickly there's a fall off. And,
Yeah.
and it's quite well known. I mean, they've been tracking this problem since the 1960s.
Absolutely,
There's
yeah,
been
it's
some,
not new.
You don't know if you've read the book The Mythical Man Month by
I have.
Fred Brooks, but
Good
yeah,
book.
it's packed full of lots of examples in the 1960s where that
Yeah.
happened. So it's a known problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. So I think so to conclude, really, I think good team size, about 5. Make good use of tooling, and make sure you've got a good mix of skills across your team.
Yes.
And if you need to multiply up, create multiple teams of 5. I think instead of making one big monolithic team, and you can focus on different areas. But that's another topic.
It is another topic. If I may mention one last thing.
You may.
I think I just wanted to point out a few key issues I've seen with larger teams. It's always going to be around onboarding and upskilling. They spend 2 or 3 weeks onboarding, learning what they need to do and how their particular environment works. Maybe there's a lack of documentation, so it's a struggle. So documentation can support that. And then it comes down to standards and making sure there's patterns for all of these things, which is where automation comes in. And as we've spoken, it's those reduce the time to onboard, and they reduce the amount of time people need to develop certain things. So I think a lot of these things are solved by automation and having smaller teams. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Well, thanks everyone for spending time with us.
Thank you very much.
Neil Strange and Alex Higgs here. I forgot to introduce ourselves at the beginning. And we'll look forward to seeing you all at our next podcast.